And on the sixth day, God said, "Let there be LS." And it was good.
DeLorean, I will sing hymns and I will win, for I'm no Orpheus. Let us begin analysis of this DeLorean.
This DeLorean is a January 1982 build, VIN number 11408. It's a DeLorean with an LS motor. Yes, this swap. What about an LS DeLorean? It's a comment that appears in many message boards and on Reddit and YouTube comments. People complain about the original engine, the PRV V6. Well, what about an LS? Well, here it is. Here is a DeLorean with a General Motors LS V8. What is there left for myself and the Roman to say about DeLoreans? We've now driven two, and this DeLorean will complete our own trilogy. We drove an automatic one that was almost a daily driver. We drove Matt Farah's beautifully rebuilt Stage 2 DeLorean, and now we have this. So our opinions have changed from when we reviewed that first DeLorean, fell to our knees and deemed we weren't worthy, and you can watch the original video of us seeing a DeLorean for the first time right here. That was way the hell back in season 2, nearly 3 years ago. And since then, we've driven a ton of unique cars, which we never thought we'd have the chance to look at, much less actually drive. It isn't that our reverence is any less than it was now, but we're in a greater position to look at the DeLorean objectively, free from any semen-covered glasses of nostalgia. So of course, Matt Farah's DeLorean was as good as a DeLorean can be, and still be period correct. And you can watch that video here. But one thing always remained, and it always bugged me. The DeLorean never went. It never accelerated. It never had the speed I thought it had when I watched the movies when I was a kid. But this does. An LS DeLorean goes like I wanted a DeLorean to go. And it sounds the way I thought it would sound.
Whoa! Oh my goodness, this is fast!
Yes, the LS solves all problems. But what you want to know is how on earth do you do this? How do you fit an LS into a DeLorean, the type of motor this car was never meant to have? So I'm going to shut up now and allow John to explain himself how on earth do you build this. Take it away, John.
Yes. Okie dokie. That may fall on you at any point in time.
Okay.
Basically, LS swap DeLorean. There's a gentleman he was in Ohio, moved down to Florida. He helped me out a lot with the swap, actually. But everyone kind of has their own take on it. So the engine I chose was an LS4. It's out. They were using front-wheel drive cars, so the Impala SS, Monte Carlo SS, the Grand Prix, whatever, Sporty Edition.
And those were transverse mounted?
They were transverse mounted. So like a bunch of, and they made turbo kits for these cars and everything. Really? Yeah. Huh. So like just gobs of power at the front wheels on this really heavy car.
Did you have to then did they use a different sort of gearbox for the front wheel drive? Did you have to choose a different one?
Well, it's still a front wheel drive transmission, and I think they used it in the past on some V6s. So this doesn't have the standard, way back in the day, they're still using it today, Chevy bolt pattern, that you could bolt any transmission up to. So it's a little bit different, except I don't care because I had to make an adapter plate.
Why'd you have to make an adapter plate?
So, because I'm mounting the Renault UN1, which is a French gearbox, which has no business being behind any sort of American engine.
Oh wait, this still has the original gearbox in it?
Yes.
I'm gonna stop the video right here. Let me repeat what John just said. This LS4 is connected to the Renault UN1. Yes, the Renault UN1 was an okay gearbox. It was used in the Lotus Esprit V8, but that 918 twin-turbo V8 was nerfed to stop the UN1 from shattering like the frozen T1000 at the end of Terminator 2. The Renault UN1 was made for high horsepower but low torque motors, the type of motors that would go into little limey B-road two-seaters. Not an LS. Not the LS. When the General Motors LS V8 descended from Mount Olive in 1997 with an aluminum dick and a Sid Vicious sneer. The world did yay and look up. Here was a pushrod motor that revved just as fast and just as hard as your holier-than-thou double overhead cam motors like the BMW S62 V8 or your precious 1J or 2JZ Nobble Gobbers. And because the LS is a cam-in block, the motor's outer dimensions remain small. And then GM cranked out these motors like Pop-Tarts. High volume prices meant the prices stay low, just like the Miata.
V8s for everybody!
And no overhead cam. Doesn't need it. No variable valve timing, at least in the beginning. It doesn't need it. The stock headers flow better than fancy aftermarket chrome trash. No twin spark setup. Burns fine with just one plug per pot. 2 valves per cylinder? Doesn't need 4. Do you remember the movie Primer where they're building the box and the two guys go over to the design and they keep eliminating parts? Like, well, it doesn't need this and it can go without this. That's the LS. Make it as simple as you can. Anything that it doesn't need, it doesn't have. That's the brilliance of this design. Josh's Renault UN1 gearbox hasn't broken yet. He drove this LS DeLorean coupled to the Renault UN gearbox from Saskatchewan all the way to Hamburg, Pennsylvania. No problems. Not one. Anyway, back to Josh.
So you got all this power going through a Renault gearbox?
Yes, it's beefed up as much as it can be.
Yeah.
The input shaft comes in and it's in 2 pieces, and there's I'd call it like a mechanical fuse. It's just kind of a female splined, like this is inside the transmission. So that's what goes, the splines strip out at about, we'll say 250 pound-feet of torque.
Okay.
So, and then the automatic's a whole nother story. Like I could put an automatic behind this and just pop them off, just destroy them one after another.
Yeah. So you had some clearance issues to solve. And
yes.
So some business with the water pump down there.
There's a few reasons why I kind of pushed it back, because if I were to install this engine with the transmission and the stock location, it would be 3 inches closer to the rear and it would basically be hanging out of the back of the car. So moving it forward, that kind of helps getting the weight a little bit closer, because the weight distribution is terrible on these cars. And it gives me more room in the front, so if I want to do like exhaust, I could run it in front there, because this exhaust is freaking noisy on the highway.
Right. Right now you're running very tiny glass packs.
Yes, the smallest ones I could get.
And the headers, what are the headers?
I just made them.
Oh,
so
your own design?
Engine 5/8 pipe. You just get I got the long tube header kit from Summit and kind of figured out, there's the head. And I kind of mounted the flange where I want it to be and go way to be.
Right. And you can just see that it just starts there, ends there.
Yeah.
It doesn't go anywhere, and a little bit of glass pack.
Well, and this is kind of a unique header because they always exit, they always make a turn, right? They don't come straight out the side. And then they're shifted too far forward or too far back and run to the frame. So I figured it would be easiest just to make my own. Had to make all new engine mounts. Before this whole project, it must have been like a week straight, and I basically measured everything, like the whole rear portion of the frame, and put it all in CAD because it was getting pretty cold.
Around.
Yeah, and then there's a gentleman, I don't know where he's from, but he took the time to model up an LS engine, so that helped out a lot.
Nice.
And I measured out the transmission and then just kind of made everything work. So all of the mounts and stuff, those are all laser cut parts that I had welded together. Ooh. So if someone wanted mounts again and the adapter plate and stuff like that, I could replicate it. I haven't found anyone serious enough. Everyone wants to, I want to LS swap my DeLorean, can you give me a kit? No, it doesn't work that way.
If they add, do you still have the files? The CAD files?
Absolutely. Yeah, I could replicate this for sure, because I am an engineer by trade, so working as CAD is something I do every day. The suspension is all stock. Really, I should be upgrading the brakes. I haven't yet.
Okay.
You got like a coating on them.
As far as cooling, you have a much bigger motor in there.
Yes.
So what was your cooling solution?
Well, And another reason why I picked this engine is aluminum block. So you're going to have better cooling, and it's also 100 pounds lighter than iron block LS. I ran it with the stock DeLorean, all the cooling setup was stock. And I ran into issues. If I was at a stoplight for 2 minutes, the fans would kick on, and then the temperature would keep rising. And if I were in like this traffic that I experienced when I'm down in the States, this thing would have overheated many times over. So this last winter when I had it down, I put aluminum radiator in it, and that dropped my temperature significantly. I wandered around the junkyard, and I looked for the biggest fans I could, and they're off like a 2000 Malibu or something. Yeah. It's a 13-inch fan, and the rad's actually only 12 inches tall. So it's like, it covers everything and then some. So
watch out, there's bees.
Oh, right now, okay, so there's the rad. And it's kind of mounted on an angle because up there's the bottom of the trunk, and then the fans are down there. Yeah, there's not a whole ton of room in there. This one's measured at, I think it's 323 at the flywheel horsepower and similar torque. So I have much better exhaust and a much better intake. So I don't know, I'll say conservatively 350.
Okay. And
maybe 300 to the ground. I would hope it's north of 300. That would be disappointing if it was in the 200s.
I call Matt Happel, he'll have a solution.
Time to drive it. I love it. Ugh, this is what I wanted. And this is what you've wanted. Since it has stock brakes, you need to allow time for this now missile to stop. And also because it has stock suspension, the front of the car gets light really easy, so when you do gently get on the power, the nose will lift. And it feels like you're going even faster. And because you have the unstoppable LS, you can pass anybody at any time. And especially people in the know, they go, I didn't think DeLoreans were that fast. And you go, right by them. But you do drive Joss's DeLorean with a little bit of fear and respect because you don't want to break it. Now, he tells me he beefed up the transmission, but I'm not sure exactly what that means. And he was very concerned when I was driving it because he said, whatever you do, don't hammer it in fifth gear. When you're on the highway, don't do a hard pull. Pretend there's an egg under that accelerator pedal at all times. Even though that was there, and even though we kept a very mild foot because of the UN1 gearbox, this was now the best DeLorean I have ever driven. The interior was it wasn't that great, but then again, you appreciate a DeLorean more from the outside than from the inside. I had nothing to fear from the motor. I had all the power I could ever need, and I had all the reliability I could ever want. I'm sure Josh will eventually come up with a long-term solution for the gearbox mismatch, but he is almost there. Once that's finished, this will be the pinnacle, the nigh on summit beautiful DeLorean that shall exist for ages. This is what all men strive for, and this is what all nerds want. The LS DeLorean. By my deeds, I honor him. V8.
DeLorean, now we are through with our review. Just call me Morpheus. What would you do if I told you this metamorphosis could start again with a new brand of DeLoreans? Is this the end? Tell